one. I'm gonna mute.
Good afternoon, and thank you for attending today's Goods Vehicle Movement Service webinar, or GVMS, as we like to call it. I'm Jed Webley, who, along with a small team, are responsible for haulier readiness for several projects, one of which is, of course, GVMS. So today's session is a GVMS awareness session, and it's to help support readiness from the 1st of January 2022. It's designed for people, or more specifically hauliers, who are new or unfamiliar with GVMS, or for anybody just wanting a reminder of how GVMS works and their responsibilities as a haulier. Paul, can we move to the first slide, please? Okay, so as part of today's event, we're going to be showing quite a few screen demonstrations. We're going to cover off all those GVMS basics, how to register for a government gateway account, which is a prerequisite, how to obtain a GB EORI, and it's very important, the GB element within that, how to register for GVMS, the service, how to complete a GMR, or Goods Vehicle Movement Reference Number, and how to check for if an inspection is required. We'll also be covering some other important GVMS detail. Before we start, I'd just like to say that today's session is interactive. You can ask questions at any time via the Teams chat function. As per the usual with these events, questions won't be answered during the live event itself, but will instead inform a questions and answers pack, and we'll look to distribute that just as soon as we can. We'll also be looking to get your opinion on some potential new screens, and there'll also be an opportunity today to complete a short survey live on the event. And what we'll do, we'll post a link a little bit later on, pause the event for a few minutes just to give you an opportunity to complete that survey. As always, your feedback is very much appreciated and will help to improve our services going forward. I should also say that today's event will be recorded, converted into a video and posted on YouTube, as per the norm with these events. We'll look to distribute the video link via the various trade associations and other contacts we have for onward cascade to any interested parties that couldn't make the event today. Paul, if we can look at today's agenda. Okay, so like I said before, today's session will involve lots of screen demonstrations. And as you can see on the presenter side, there's lots of handoffs to various presenters. So please bear with us if we have the odd technical glitch along the way. But hopefully, fingers crossed, the event runs as smoothly as possible. Okay, so before I hand over to Paul Earnshaw, who's next up, I'd just like to take a moment to ask for your help. With full customs controls to be implemented from January 2022, we obviously want to ensure a smooth transition takes place and everything works. One of the ways we're doing this is by providing really an opportunity for hauliers, people like yourself, to join in and test our systems and processes in real life scenarios. So we call this live proving, and it's a type of system testing and process testing. We're already working with some volunteers at the moment, but we're always looking for new volunteers. So if you're interested in getting involved at live proving with helping us make sure everything works smoothly for January 2022, then please put your name and email contact details into the chat and just indicate help with live proving, and we'll get back in touch with you shortly and get you involved just as soon as we can. So thank you for anyone who decides to get involved. Right, Paul, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you to get us started on GVMS. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Jed. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Paul Earnshaw, and I work with Jed in the GB Directorate Operational Readiness Squad. We have said already that today is focused on the how for GVMS, and we will quickly move on to that how in a moment. But before we do that, I just wanted to recap on GVMS in general. I want to recap on what GVMS is, why it is important for hauliers to register for it, how we define a haulier for GVMS purposes, and what you need to do to register and get that goods movement reference to enable you to be able to move goods. So I'll start with the beginning. So what is GVMS? So start with a little history lesson to kick us off. So on the 31st of December 2020 at 2300 hours in the UK, or Central European time at midnight, depending on where you were, the UK government introduced a new IT system called the Goods Vehicle Movement Service, and that's to support the pre-lodgement model for both imports and exports and to facilitate common transit convention movements. Now, the pre-lodgement model is developed as an alternative where border locations might not have the space and infrastructure to operate temporary storage regimes. And the pre-lodgement model ensures that all customs declarations are pre-lodged before the haulier boards, and this will maintain flow, especially with the high volume roll-on, roll-off locations. So in essence, GVMS allows us to do four things. So it allows us to enable declaration references to be linked together so that the person moving the goods only has to present one single reference in an electronic envelope, which we call the Goods Movement Reference, or GVMR, at the frontier. What it also does is it allows the linking of the movement of the goods to those declarations, and it enables the automatic arrival and departure of goods within HMRC systems. Also, for common transit convention movements, it automates the Office of Transit function, marking the entry of goods into either Northern Ireland or Great Britain. And what it also does, it allows notification of the risking outcome of declarations in our systems, and that is sent in to the person in control of the goods by the time they physically arrive in Northern Ireland or Great Britain. So GVMS and why it is important to hauliers. So currently GVMS is used for movements between Great Britain and Northern Ireland in both directions, and for common transit convention movements between EU and GB. So if you're already moving goods on those routes between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and you're moving transit goods between EU and GB, you'll know why that's important to you. However, from the 1st of January 2022, full customs controls will apply to all goods moving between EU and Great Britain. Now, as we said, the Goods Vehicle Movement Service system has been designed to enable fast and efficient movement via pre-lodgement, and it will be used by most UK ports. So that means from the 1st of January, if you're not registered, you attempt to move any goods through a GVMS port, you won't be able to do the following. You won't be able to board the ferry or shuttle. You won't be able to cross the EU and UK border, and you won't be able to clear your goods through customs. What we are saying, and we will repeat through today, is that if you're moving goods between EU and GB, from January or before then, you should register for the system as soon as possible. Now, there is a link at the end of this slide to find out which UK ports use GVMS. You can click on this link, and we will send this pack later. But you can check that straight away. You don't need this link to do that. You can check which ports are in scope via gov.uk by doing a simple search. Okay, so just moving on to haulier definitions, what do we mean by a haulier and who should register? So any hauliers that move goods through the ports of adopted GVMS, regardless of whether you're based in the UK or not, will need to register. Now, hauliers may fall under one of the following definitions. So it could be an independent driver that transports goods and does their own customs paperwork. It could be a company that subcontracts to pick up goods on behalf of another business. It could be a logistics business hired to transport goods and complete customs processes on behalf of another business. Or it could be a large retail business that transports and declares your own goods. Now, if you fall into any of the above categories or similar categories, we urge you to register for that service as soon as possible, even if you don't use it yet. And we advise that you do that straight away and don't leave that until December. If there are any difficulties with your registration, if you do this now, it will give us the opportunity to resolve those in advance of the 1st of January and will ensure that you aren't stuck unable to get a GMR or move goods on the 1st of January. So just coming on to GVMS and what you need to have in place to be able to use it. So hauliers will need to have a government gateway account. They'll also need to have a GB EORI. They would also need to have access to the goods vehicle movement service. So as mentioned earlier today, today is all about the how, or mostly about the how, and we will be now covering how you can obtain all of the above prerequisites to get you in that position where you can access GVMS and create a goods movement reference. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first presenter of the day. I'm going to unshare my screen and allow Stuart Murray to share his in a moment, and it is indeed Stuart Murray who will be taking you through how you get a government gateway account, which is that first prerequisite. So I'm going to unshare my screen and hand over to you, Stuart. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Okay, hopefully you can see that. I should have a Google search on my screen. Okay, so registering for a government gateway account. If you go to Google, there are various things you can type in to do this, but as soon as you want to register for GVMS, one of the things you could just search for is GVMS register. If you do that, you'll see this link, register for the goods vehicle movement service, gov.uk. So if I click on that, that'll take you to this page, which provides some guidance about registering for the service. Some of the things that you've just heard are sort of mentioned again on this page: who should register, when, etc. So I won't go through that now because we've just heard all of that. But if you scroll down, there's this how to register section. And as it says, and as I said earlier, you need a government gateway user ID and password. If you don't have one, then you can create one for your business when you register. So there's this green button underneath that. So if I click on register now, that will take you to this government gateway sign-in page. So if you already have a user ID and password, you can just enter those in there and that'll work, and that'll take you to the GVMS registration. But if you don't, there's a link here just below that for creating sign-in details. So I shall click on that. Okay, first thing it asks you to do is to enter your email address. And then what it's going to do then is send a code to that email address, which will ask you to enter, and that's just a way of verifying your email address. Make sure we've got the correct one. So I'll enter my email address there and click continue. So now it's asking for me to enter a code. It said it will send a code to that email address. Note the code will expire in 30 minutes, so it should be sent instantaneously to you. So you need to enter it, get it, and enter it in 30 minutes. I can just see it's just coming to my inbox here. So I shall get that code. So this is the email that you'll see. and it says your confirmation code is. So I should just copy that 6-digit code or 6-character code. Go back to here, paste that in, copy that in. Obviously, you can type that in as well, and click confirm. Okay, the email address is confirmed. Next thing, just click continue. It then asks for your full name. So I'll type this in. This isn't validated at all, actually. So you can put anything into there, but I'll put in my name. Create a password. As it says, password must be 10 or more characters, and you can use a mixture of letters, numbers, and symbols. So I shall password down there. And click continue. That's done, and then what you need to do next is set up a recovery word. So you hopefully won't ever need to use this, but if you lose your password, forget your password, one of the things that you can use to get back into your Government Gateway account if you've forgotten your password is a recovery word. So it'll just ask you to set one up. This word must be between 6 and 12 characters, mustn't contain spaces or special characters, and not contain numbers. So there are the rules for that. So again, I've got one here that I've used before. So, but you just type in whatever you want there, as long as it matches those rules, and click continue. Then that's your Government Gateway user ID. So that's what you'll use on the sign-in page going forward to sign in with. You enter this and you enter the password that you set up. As it says, we've sent it to my email address, so I should have another email here. I do, just telling you what your user ID is, so you've got a copy of that in your email inbox. Okay, click continue. And then the final thing you do, since your organisations, because you're using GVMS, the thing to do really is click on this organisation type of account. What that will allow you to do then is, going forward, it'll allow you to add other users into your group, which is something that we'll cover later on. But yeah, just for now, just need to click organisation and click continue. And that's it. So you now have a Government Gateway account, which you can use going forward, and it will take you, once you've done that, if you search for GVMS sign up at the start, it will take you to this page where you'll be able to continue with your GVMS application. And that's it. So I will hand back to Paul. I'll stop sharing my screen. So over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Stuart, for the very, very informative session, and I think you've covered off that first prerequisite for GVMS really, really well there, which leads me to other things and moving on. So yeah, we've covered that first prerequisite. What we're going to cover now, and I'm going to hand over really quickly, so won't be speaking for that long, is getting a GB EORI, and then actually how you register for GVMS. So we'll be firstly handing over to Richard Melbourne, but he will also hand back to Stuart, who will actually show you how you add additional users to a Government Gateway account. Stuart's of course just covered the Government Gateway account part, but logically, if you were actually doing this in real life, so to speak, this is probably the way that you would do it. You would start with your Government Gateway, then you get your GB EORI, then register, and then you add additional users later. So we've sequenced it in that way for the purposes of today. Anyway, I promised I will stop speaking. I'm going to hand over to Richard now, so I'm going to unshare my screen and hand over to him. So over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I'll share my screen. Hope everyone can see that. Hi, my name is Richard. I'm part of the ECC Digital team, and I'm going to go through with you today how to set up a GVMS, but as well as set up a GB EORI if you need it, which is the main prerequisite you're going to need for a GVMS. So when you first start, when you come to get a goods movement reference, this is the page you will start on. At the top, you can see we tell you what you will need. So the main thing, like I said, is the GB EORI. You can click on this link here. It'll take you to a checker. If you've already got an EORI, you want to check that it's correct. That'll take you to that. We tell you that if you got VAT details within the UK, then you're going to need these. We need the VAT number, the registered address postcode, and the effective date. You will need to declare your standard industrial classification code, which is a SIC code. We have a link on the page and this page to go and find your specific SIC code, or you can find one that's related to your business. If you're a company or organisation, we're going to be asking you for your corporation tax UTR. If you pay corporation tax in the UK, there's a link here to find the UTR number. It gives you more help on that. We'll ask for the registered company name, the company address, and the date of establishment. If you're a sole trader or individual, we will ask you for the national insurance number or the self-assessment unique taxpayer references sort of verification. We'll let you know lastly that we'll process your application and email you with results within 2 hours. Okay, so the first thing we ask you for is an email. This is basically to just keep you updated on your application and to sort of any correspondence that we need. So if I put that. We then ask you to basically confirm this email address that you've just entered. We then send you an email. You need to then go off and confirm that email, come back, and basically you'll see that screen that you just saw that says confirm. So once you've put your email in, you've confirmed it, you'll go to your email address, click on the link to confirm it to say that it's real, and then come back to the application. So what we ask you for here is your GB EORI number, and this is a 12-digit number. Firstly, I'm going to take you through the process if you already have a GB EORI number, and then I'll take you through the process of a GVMS if you don't have a GB EORI number. So firstly, we'll say that you do have a GB EORI number. You would enter it in there. We will then ask you where you're based, so United Kingdom, Channel Islands, or the Isle of Man, or the rest of the world. For this example, I am going to use United Kingdom, but for the rest of the world, there's no difference other than entering the address and stuff like that. So it's completely the same process. We ask you if you're a company, sole trader, individual, partnership, an LLP, or a charity or public body or non-profit organisation. So we'll say we're a company. We ask you for your registered company name. Sorry. We ask you for your unique corporation tax UTR. And that's 10. We ask you when was the company established. So this is the establishment date that you would find on your documents that you've got for the certificate of incorporation. What is your registered company address? And then we ask you to select, basically, don't worry if this address doesn't match, this is a staging environment, but this is where your address would appear in the bottom. And then you basically select your address, continue. And then basically we ask you to check the answers back. So these are the answers that we ask you to go through. I know at the beginning I said that you would need the VAT information and stuff like that, but that's only if you need to apply for a GB EORI. If you've already got a GB EORI, you would already filled that in. And this is all we require for a GVMS application. So click confirm and send. We tell you a subscription request has been received on the date, tells you GB EORI number again, and basically what happens next, that we'll send you an email to confirm when you have access to your goods movement reference. It can take up to 2 hours. There's here to download a PDF and then a quick link to tell you about what you think of the service. So that's if you have a GB EORI. So basically, if you don't have a GB EORI, we'll start again from the main page. So we first click continue. And then there's a little link down at the bottom says I do not have an EORI number. You must get an EORI number before you can apply for a goods movement reference. So basically you click on that. Now it takes you off to get a GB EORI. Now the good thing about this process is that You don't have to do this and then go back and do the process that I've just shown you. Once you've completed this GB EORI process, you will automatically get a GVMS registration subscription at the end. So basically, this is like a whole process in one. So you don't have to do this and then wait and then go back. It will also be done as well. We tell you here, if approved your subscription, we're ready within 2 hours. If we need to make more checks to your application, so there could be some things that we have to check regarding your corporation tax, your VAT or something like that. It may take up to 5 working days, but we will let you know this. Okay, so we again tell you basically what I've just told you on the other screen of what you will need to subscribe regarding VAT, SIC code, corporation tax, etc. It's all the same things that I've just told you. So click start now to get a GB EORI. We ask you if you're an organisation based in the Isle of Man. Now, if you say yes, it sends you off to, we call it a Carna form, which is like a paper version, sort of non-digital version of the GB EORI process, because currently this digital process doesn't handle Isle of Man declarations. So if I click no to continue, again, are you part of a VAT group in the UK? If you are part of a VAT group, again, it sends you off to do a completely different process, very similar to the Isle of Man, the same kind of form. So you'll have to go through that process if you are a VAT group within the UK. So for this, I'll say no, so we can continue the digital process. Again, similar question to what we had on the other one, where are you based? United Kingdom, Isle of Man, Channel Islands, rest of the world. Just a slight variation there. I think Isle of Man and Channel Islands was one selection before. In this process, it's 2 different ones. Again, are you a company, sole trader, etc. So we'll click company. And again, we're just doing the exact same thing that we've just done. So it's basically a sort of longer version of what you've just seen. By the way, it won't be 10 ones, your number, just going to put that one through. This is just so we can pass through the staging environment. Now, in our process for the for this one, for the actual registering for a GB, it works a little differently to the GVMS subscription. Before it asked you to enter your number and postcode, this is a bit more sophisticated. What it does is it looks at the UTR number that you've entered, and we then pull it back from Company's House and the information you've entered, and we pull it back from Company's House basically of the address that you've got. So you basically just have to confirm it back, which is a bit more of a time saver. We ask you again for the establishment date. And then we ask you for a sort of contact for this application. So you've already entered your email address, which is at the top, but we also ask you for a name and a contact number. Now, this doesn't have to be the person who's sort of in charge of the business. It can be somebody you want to specifically handle this application. Somebody could be in the accounts department, could be a secretary, it could be whoever you feel like would be best for this application. The contact address has been pulled from the registered address. Now you can either say yes, and this is the one I want to use, or say no. Again, it could be a different department, different office that you want to handle this specific application. So for this, we'll just say yes, this is fine. Do you have a company short name? Now you don't have to enter this, but this is just say Bob's Haulage. You've just got Bob's Haul or something like that, or something, or an abbreviation that you want to use. So for this, we'll just say no, but you can enter an abbreviation. Like I said, there's an example there of HMRC. Standard SIC code, which is a standard industrial classification code. This is a 5-digit number. You can, like I say, you can go off here and find your SIC code or one that sort of is relevant to your business. We do understand that you can have multiple SIC codes. Please try and use the one that you think is more primarily related to your business, that you think would be the main one. Is your organisation VAT registered in the UK? If it's not, just click no and it will bypass this. But to show you what would happen if you click yes, I'm just going to go through this process. So first you enter the postcode. So this would be the postcode that I would say for VAT, the VAT number, and then the effective date. Now the effective date is found on your VAT certificate. There is a way to find it online that you can get some help on gov.uk for that, as how to find it within your government gateway if you are VAT registered. But it is found on your certificate. The reason we ask for the effective date is mainly for security, because the other parts of your VAT information can be found publicly for some companies. Is your organisation VAT registered in other EU countries? If you click yes, as soon as you start typing in something in that country, it will bring it up, and then you type in the VAT number. Now you can add up to 99 VAT numbers. I know it says 5, but there is actually 99 in the system you can use. But all you've got to do is just click yes, there's another one I want to use, go back, and it will take you to the previous screen and keep adding them. So you can keep adding as many as you need to, basically, and it's like a cycle coming back to this screen. Once you're finished, do you want to add any more? You click no. Do you want to include the company name and address on the EORI checker? Now, the EORI checker for the GB EORI is added to the UK public checker. It's standard is that we add your EORI number, but if you want to add the name and address of the business, you can as well. Now, this basically helps customs and freight agents identify you quickly. It minimises delays and helps process your shipments. This is totally optional. We do advise that you check it just to make sure that everything runs smoothly, but like I said, you don't have to do it if you don't want. So click yes. And then the final screen, we ask you to basically just check the answers that you've already put in. You can pretty much change most of the things that you've put in, sort of the original stuff. The reason that you can't go back and change this straight from here is because all this information is pulled off of the corporation UTR. You'd have to go back to the beginning and start again if you wanted to change that. But everything else you can click change and just go back in, check all your answers, just make sure that everything is as you want it to be. A little declaration at the bottom saying confirm and send. So once we click that, we tell you that your GB EORI number for your company name, which would be an org name, is this GB EORI number. It was issued by the HMRC on this date. And then we basically got download a PDF of the EORI number, download an accessible file. We tell you that EORI number will be ready to use within 48 hours. It will appear on the validation checker within 5 days. Now, the reason we say up to 48 hours is because EORI number will be active straight away. But say if you had a sort of a haulage truck at the port and they wanted to use this EORI number straight away, say 1 minute later, we can't guarantee it will be active for that part of it, but we just say up to 48 hours just to be safe, just to let you know. Okay, so we tell you at this point, if you're going to be moving goods into Northern Ireland, you also will need an XI EORI, so here's a link to go and get that. Your EORI number and government gateway, basically we tell you that they've been linked and that you will have access to your goods movement reference within 2 hours. And we just tell you that you can't apply for another EORI number using this government gateway. A little bit of help section at the bottom. And yeah, that's it. So like I said, you get a GB EORI and you get your GVMS subscription in the same process. If you've already got a GB EORI, you will take the shorter route at the beginning. So yeah, so that's how you do those two processes. And now I'm going to hand back to Stuart, and he's going to show you how to add multiple people to your government gateway ID.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Okay, so if you're an organisation, it may be that you want multiple users to be able to use your GVMS enrolment. Only if you'd selected organisation during that registration phase that I was showing you earlier, would you be able to do this? If instead you chose an individual, then you can't have any more users within your group. But if you did choose organisation, then what you can do, if you do a search for HMRC sign in, you can do this at any point. So HMRC, so you'll see this page, HMRC services sign in or register. So I'll choose sign in. I'll go back and just get the user ID that I was given earlier. That, it doesn't matter if you put spaces in or not, actually, from there. The numbers, so I'll just enter the password. Okay, you'll land on a page like this, business tax account homepage. So to add additional users to your group, you can click on this manage account link. And then here we've got add or delete a team member. I'll click on that. Okay, and that's currently showing the team members within my group. Click on add a team member. Okay, if I just type in the name, then you would type in that person's email address Just for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to use my email address again. This is where you would normally type in this example, you'd put in Richard's own email address. I'll put in mine just for this demonstration. And then you can choose a role for this new user. The two types of role, there's administrators and standard users. Administrators can enroll in HMRC services or de-enroll from services, and they can also manage the team members within their group. Standard users can't do any of those things, but standard users can, once they're assigned to an enrolment, they can use that service, which I'll show you that in a second. So Richard, I'll say he's an administrator. And I'll add another team member just to demonstrate. Again, I'm just going to enter my email address, but again, you put in this new person's email address there, and I'll say they're a standard user. And click continue. Okay, I'll leave it there. You can have as many administrators and as many standard users within your group as you want. There's no limit to that. I shall click confirm. Okay, so what happens next? So those accounts now created. They've sent an email to me as the administrator who just created those accounts with temporary passwords, and what I need to do then is just hand those temporary passwords over to the new users. And what that also happened is those new users themselves have each received an email with their own user ID in. It says for security, don't share passwords by email. So if I just go to my email address, because I entered it for all of them, you'll see I've got all the emails. So Richard has got this email telling him his user ID. George has got one the same, and then myself, Stuart. It just says you've added two new team members, telling them the details and giving them temporary passwords, which I should then hand over to those new users to allow them to sign in. The first time they do sign in, they'll be asked to change their password because these are just temporary. So that's the new team members added, as you can see there. So what that means now is if you have enrolled in a service, so for example GVMS, you can assign users to that service, and that will then allow them in turn to use your enrolment in that service. So I'm just going to switch over to this other tab now, because I'm just going to switch over to our test system just so I can show you what that means. So this is now in the test system. This is an account that I set up exactly the same as the one that we've done. I've just shown you. I did this earlier in test. So in order to assign users to an enrolment, again, you go to manage account, and rather than do that add or delete a team member, you go to this one below, give a team member access to a tax duty or scheme. Okay. What you can see now are a list of all of the taxes and schemes that my group is enrolled in. So you can see here we've enrolled earlier for GVMS and we've got an EORI number. I can click on this manage team members link, and then I can assign these additional users and de-assign myself if I wanted to, but I won't. I'll just keep that there. So we're now all assigned to this enrolment. Click on save. That just tells me that I've added those two team members to that enrolment. And that takes me back there. What that means is that those two users, Georgia and Richard, could now use your GVMS enrolment just as much as you could using your own account that you created earlier. If I click back, that'll take me back to the home page. And that's it. So again, I shall stop sharing. And hand back to Paul.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and many thanks to you and Richard for covering off those prerequisites for us today. I think it's completely clear what needs to be done to get registered for GVMS and all those extra parts that you need to do, as well as adding additional users to your account. All really good stuff. So thank you for that. So in terms of our next stage of today's presentation and webinar, there's going to be more of the how. We're going to show you how to complete a goods movement reference. What I'm going to do before that, however, though, is just run through an import journey from EU to GB to show you how GVMS works, give you an overview or a brief overview of how that works. I'm also going to touch on the references required to populate a GMR. Now, I'm covering an import journey today. Of course, exports will be relevant from January as well. I won't cover the export screens today, and we won't cover an export journey today, but we will cover that in a future webinar and show you those screens sometime in November. So keep an eye out for that webinar when it is when we do run it, because invites will be coming out certainly probably in the next few weeks or so. So what I will do is run through an import journey first and foremost to show you how GVMS works. Then I'll run through the references required to populate a GMR. Then I will hand over to my colleague Guy, who will do all of that good stuff and show you the how it's done. Okay, so in terms of how GVMS works, if you're moving goods from EU to GB, so there are distinct stages. So before moving goods, you would need to have in place all of those prerequisites that I referred to earlier. Pardon me. So the prerequisites, for example, you would have to have the GB EORI, you would need to be registered for GVMS, you would need to have all of that in place. Plus you would need to have the various reference numbers for the customs declarations for the to mirror the goods that you're actually moving. So you would need either movement reference numbers or entry reference numbers. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And or transit reference numbers if it's a moving under Common Transit Convention, or an ATA or a TIR carnet reference, but you will need all of those references up front from the trader or declarant who is getting you to move the goods. Okay, just also a quick note that you would also, as a haulier, need to have a safety and security declaration in place, although this won't be taking place in January 2022 as originally planned. That requirement has now been moved until July 2022, but that is something that you would need to have in place from July, but not for January. So those are what things you need to have in place before moving the goods. Before arriving at the EU place of exit, you would need to have firstly created a GMR. So you need to create a goods movement reference, and we'll show you how to do that in a moment. And you would need to populate that with all the various references that you would need to include, all of those customs references. So that might be an EORI, for example, for an entry in declarant records, or it may be some of those other references I referred to earlier, such as an import declaration from Chief, or CDS, or it could be a carnet reference, or it could be a transit reference. What will also need to be completed at this stage, you would need to complete the vehicle registration number, the trailer registration number, or container reference number into the GMR with the as well as the departure and destination port. So once you've added all of that information to a GMR, you will get to a state where it is finalizable. And what you'll be able to do is then take that to the EU place of exit. So when you check in at that EU place of exit, at that port, the carrier who you have booked with will capture the GMR at check-in, and they will send that to GVMS to validate and ensure that that GMR is correct and in order. If the GMR is valid, you'll be approved to board. Any invalid GMRs, however, So any incorrect details will need to be corrected. So the driver would be turned away from the port if there are any incorrect details. This shouldn't happen, generally speaking, because you will know that the GMR is in a finalizable state and you'll be able to check that. But if by chance that does actually happen, and exceptionally you do arrive at the port without a valid GMR, then you will be turned away and you will need to correct that. Now, assuming that everything is placed and that GMR was in a finalizable state and you've checked in correctly, then you can leave the EU. And what will actually happen as soon as you've embarked, the carrier will send the GMRs to GVMS, so that will be sent electronically. So that GMR that's been captured will be sent to GVMS. And what GVMS as a system will do, it will receive the GMR and it will disaggregate all of the reference numbers that are within that, and they will initiate arrival and office of transit processes if necessary. And what HMRC systems will also do is actually risk the various reference number and send updates back to GVMS. Now, that could result in either a hold on the goods, or you may get the green light to just carry on with your journey. If there's a hold on the goods, then of course the checks will need to take place. And you would need to actually take the goods for check-in at an HMG facility, either at the port, depending on the port that you're using, or at an inland border facility if you're moving through, say, the ports of Dover, Eurotunnel and Holyhead, which have really high volumes and don't actually have space for checks. Now, the whole status of goods, in terms of if there is a hold, a message will actually be sent via GVMS to the haulier, and you can actually check that status on the GMR by the GVMS system. However, the driver can also check this information themselves. So the driver doesn't need access to GVMS to be able to check if there is a hold on their goods. They can actually check that via the check if you need an inspection service. Now, that is a service that can be accessed either via the GMR. So when you create a GMR, there is actually a link within the GMR that the driver can click on if they have access to a smartphone, for example, and they can actually check whether the goods are actually held or cleared on that in terms of that GMR. No access, like I say, is required to any government gateway accounts. So that is something that a driver can access simply from the link, and we will demonstrate that in a little while. So, like I said, there's two potential outcomes here. If you get the green light, so to speak, and there are no failures and no checks are required, then you can disembark. The trailer or vehicle can disembark and then can continue with their journey. If there is a hold, then of course you would need to go to that border facility. That will either be close to the port or, like I say, away from the port at an inland border location. So that's how GVMS works at a high level for imports. You complete the GMR with the various references. It's checked in with the haulier. Then GVMS will check whether the goods are cleared or whether there's a hold on those goods, and you can actually check that outside of GVMS itself via the driver messaging service, or what we call the check if you need an inspection service. So in terms of actually creating a GMR and how you do that, I will be handing over to my colleague really shortly. What I'm just going to discuss briefly are the types of references that you would actually enter into a GMR from the 1st of January 2022. So a GMR is going to be required for all goods moving through GB ports that have adopted GVMS. And a GVMR should contain the following types of detail for the following movements, whether it's an import or an export. So if you're importing from EU to GB and you're declaring an import into Chief or CDS, or should I say your trader has declared into Chief or CDS, they would provide you with either an entry reference number from Chief which is called an ERN, or a movement reference number from CDS, and that is what you would actually enter into that GMR. If the trader has an authorization to make an entry in their own records, which we call EIDR, then the trader would supply their EORI to the haulier and they would enter that in the GMR. If you're moving under the various carnet types, either ATA or TIR carnet, then the carnet reference numbers that come from the front of the accompanying carnet documents would be included into the GMR. Last but not least, if you're moving common transit convention movements, which you have to do today for EU GB movements, then you would enter that TAD, which is short for Transit Accompanying Documents, MRN, into the GMR. If, however, you're exporting from GB to EU, there may be some slightly different references that you need to enter. If you're declaring your export into Chief or CDS, or your traders declaring their export into Chief or CDS, then the reference they need to provide you with is the Declaration Unique Consignment Reference, which we call a DUCA. If you are moving onto ATA or TIR carnet movements, it is as it is for imports. It's those reference numbers that are entered into the GMR. And also in some instances when exporting, you may need to enter a TAD as well for CTC Common Transit Convention movements. The final point before I do hand over for the demonstration is that certain goods can be declared orally by conduct at the border. And if you need to make an oral or declaration by conduct, that you'll need to also complete a GMR2 if moving through a port that has adopted GVMS. So what we say is that you need to refer to the guidance for that. It's not something that I'm going to cover today. It is a subject in its own right, oral and conduct declarations. But the link in this pack, or if you search gov.uk, will actually detail those various goods that can be declared orally or by conduct. Okay, so I've done enough talking there. I've been through an import journey. I've explained what you need to actually create a GMR. Guy is actually going to show you now the how and how you actually do that. So Guy, over to you. I'm going to unshare my screen and let you share yours.
Thanks, Paul. Okay. So I'm going to pick up the journey after you've got your government gateway and you've registered for GVMS. I'm going to take it quite slowly so you'll have a chance to hopefully have a chance to read what's on the pages. Hopefully it strikes the right balance between giving you enough chance to have a read and not being too slow. So the first part of the journey is this is from the dashboard, and we're going to start by actually creating a new GMR reference. Okay, so a little bit of guidance to kick you off, and you start the process by clicking the green button. We've got some more guidance around when you need to create the GMR. Just to flag that this is the current version of what is live at the moment. So at the moment, we're not using GMRs for importing goods. But for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to do a journey coming in from the EU into GB. Okay, we give you the opportunity to check you have actually entered the right direction. You can change that if you need to, but once you've confirmed that the direction is correct, this is the only part of a GMR that you can't change. So there we are, we've got the GMR reference number there. And if you want to, you can start to add more information to the GMR, and that's the declaration types that we'll take you through in a second. We've added some guidance around Common Transit Convention, which is a movement we've currently being used, and a little bit of help text to help users around the correct time to enter that declaration type, and a little bit around another type of declaration, the export accompanying document. Okay, now we get into the adding the detail part of the journey. So you can work through this in any order, but we'll take it from the top. The first part is adding the details in respect of the route. So we go from Con into Portsmouth. Then we move on to the driver. In this case, the driver will be travelling with a vehicle. We'll add in the vehicle registration number. And you can also add in trailers or containers if required. They're optional entries. So if you're not moving trailers or containers, you're not obliged to provide that information. Okay, now we move on to the declaration part. Now for this example, we will do a customs declaration in a minute, but you can see there's the other declaration types that Paul's referred to. So we're going to do a customs declaration. Now, this is the current version of the service. What we are hoping to do is enhance that page to give a little bit more information and help users around entering the customs declaration reference number to use. What you're going to enter here is going to depend on what you've declared and where you've declared it, either into the Customs Declaration Service, CDS, or into Chief, that's the customs handling of import and export freight. We'll do a Chief declaration, and this is going to be made up of three elements: the entry processing unit number, the entry reference number, and the date of entry. First part is 3 digits, then it's 7 digits, then it's 8 digits. And you'd normally be passed this information by your customs agent. So let's start entering that information. Yeah, it's putting together those 18 digits. Happy with that? Continue. I've got it right. So I then move on to the safety and security declaration. Now watch carefully, because I'm deliberately going to make a mistake here, just to show one of the error types. So I'll put that information in. Yeah, I put too many digits in. So I need to go back and have a look at that. You can see I've entered 19 rather than 18. I just need to correct that and then I can move on. That's all good. So I've got confirmation we've added one declaration. There's the reference number, there's the safety and security, status is okay. So I'm good to move on. If I wanted to, I could add another declaration, but I'm going to continue the journey to take you through to the next stage. So you can see that we've completed all the tasks. I move on to the next stage. So you have an opportunity to check your answers. And you can see on the right hand side there, for each bit of information you've entered, you've had the opportunity, or you have the opportunity to change and correct it. If you're content, you finish. And this is the barcode that you can present on check-in at the port. So it's key that you give this information to the driver who's going to be moving the goods. You can change any of the information in the GMR. The barcode will stay the same. And what we also provide for you is the opportunity to print off a PDF that gives the driver the key information and that all-important barcode. We also provide them with the UTR of the driver messaging service that we'll come to in a minute. So if I'm all happy, I can return to the dashboard. And you can see that on my dashboard, I've got my first GMR. So that takes you through a simple journey to create a GMR. I'm going to hand back to Paul.
Thank you, Guy. Okay, so another really informative session there, and there've been lots of those today, but thank you very much, Guy. And I know that you're sticking around because we'll be calling on you again in just a moment. But I just wanted to run through and talk through reporting for an inspection. Just referring back to that imports journey, I did discuss that that it is important that drivers do turn up for turn up and report for any checks that are required for any goods. However, it is the responsibility of hauliers in general to ensure that their drivers are made aware of the need to stop for any checks. And for that reason, hauliers must ensure there's a clear line of sight between themselves and drivers, and that you have processes and procedures in place to ensure that any held cleared messages are passed on. However, like we did say earlier, and this leads me into Guy's next demonstration, it is possible for drivers to access the status themselves, and that can be checked via the check if you need to report for an inspection service. And what it will allow you to do, it will allow drivers to check the status of goods in real time by using the link contained within the goods movement reference being used to move the goods. So, like I say, it can be accessed via a link. Guy did touch on that link a little bit earlier, and he will show you how that works in a moment, but that will determine whether the GMR requires an inspection or not. So just to recap, you don't need, even though in terms of practical terms, if a haulier or haulage firm has created the GMR and then passed it on to a driver, they're the ones who would get that message around the held cleared status via GVMS itself. But the actual check, if you need an inspection service, can be checked by anybody with a link to that URL in the GMR. So you don't need access to government gateway accounts, you just need a device with internet access such as a smartphone, and that service itself has actually been translated into the top 10 user languages. There is a link to that service included in this slide. We'll send these slides out again, like we said earlier, but you know, that link is also included in that GMR, and the URLs included in that GMR, so it can either be clicked on if you've got an electronic version of it, if the driver's got an electronic version, or they can type in the URL into whatever device they would use to actually check that, but most likely to be a smartphone, like we say. So that's just reporting for an inspection. Just a few notes on that and a few words on that. I'm going to now get back to the how again. Guy's going to show you how you use that. So Guy, over to you again.
Thanks again, Paul. Okay, let's make a start. So this is the driver messaging service. We call it driver messaging service, report for inspection. It goes by a number of names. And it's all around providing the information that the driver may need to look at to see whether they have to report for inspection or not. Key thing here is a GMR. You need to have the GMR to access the service. As Paul's already mentioned, the service has been translated into the sort of top 10 languages for the drivers of the current driver base. And we're having a look at the service in German at the moment. Let's have a quick look in Polish. That's the Polish. But for the purposes of this demo, we'll take you through the English version. So let's make a start. So as I said, we need a GMR. So we just pop in a GMR here. So for this GMR, it's pending. So we haven't got a decision yet whether they're clear to go or whether they actually have to report for inspection. So message there is to check again, and the suggestion is to do it about 10 minutes before you arrive in port. We'll put another one in. This time around, we've got confirmation, no inspection is needed. Now, what we do point out here is there may be other controls you may need to consider, because if you're moving particular goods or particular movement types, there may be specific inspections you may have to report to. And we've given the examples on the page here, as you can see. Any doubt, check with your declarant. So let's check another GMR. This time, inspections needed. So the goods haven't been cleared from customs. And what we have to do now is report for an inspection. And we provide a link to gov.uk that will give some information on where those inspection sites will be. We also point out again that there may be additional controls. So even if you've done a customs inspection, you may still have to report for other specialist inspections if you're moving certain types of goods. But essentially, that's the three outcomes: pending, report for inspection, cleared, and those are cleared subject to what you're carrying if they're particular types of goods. It comes in English, Welsh, and the top 10 other European languages, which should help drivers, hopefully make it easier for them to use the service if that's required. So that was a quick gallop through. It's very short. I'll pass you back to Jed this time.
Thanks, Guy. Another great demonstration and walkthrough there. Brilliant stuff. Okay, so like I said before, we would like to get your opinion on some potential new GVMS screens. And also there'll be an opportunity a little bit later on to complete a short survey live on the event. As always, you know, your feedback is very much appreciated, so I really do encourage you to get involved, and we'll use all this information and feedback to help improve our systems going forward. Now, I've not seen these new screens yet, they're potential new screens, so I'm going to ask Guy to talk you through them, present them, the changes, and just talk you through what those potential changes could be and what the screens look like. If you have any feedback, please enter any comments in chat, whether you think the changes are good, the screens look good or bad, or whatever your opinion. And again, like I say, it's very much appreciated, and we'll use that information to improve our systems. So, Guy, over to you to have a look at these potential new screens.
Thanks, Jed. Okay, so as you'll have seen in the demo, for customs declarations, it is quite a complex reference number that we have to ask you to enter. What we're looking at is any way we can make that a little bit more easier for you to complete that customs declaration. So rather than just leaving the one box for customs, we're looking to see whether we can perhaps split it into the different type of customs declaration, whether it's a chief declaration or whether it's a CDS declaration. So potentially in the new version, you would have the opportunity to choose which declaration type you're entering. So that's which customs declaration type you're entering. So for MRN, you would just enter the 18-character MRN reference number. That's probably the easier of the two. But the problem we're trying to solve is the chief reference number. So as you will see, what we've done is we've broken the reference number down into the sort of three constituent parts: the EPU, the ENT number, and the ERN. So that's your 3 digits, your 7 digits, the 8 digits, which gives you the 18-digit reference number. So really what we're looking for is your view as to whether the version that we showed you in the demo, with just the one box covering the two customs declaration types, works for you, or whether you think this version where we break the two declarations up, and in particular we break the chief reference number into its three constituent parts, whether that would make it easier for you to complete that information. And that's it, Jed. Thank you. Thanks for the time for letting me share that.
Thanks, Guy. If you've got any opinion on what you've just seen, if you think it's a good idea or not, please let us know in the chat. Right, Sai, could you please post a link for the Google survey? Next up, we've got a very short Google survey, and we're going to pause the event for 3 minutes. It's only going to take 2-3 minutes to complete, but if you could please click on the link and complete that survey, we will take all your feedback into consideration, and it's very much appreciated. So we're going to pause the event and for till 15:19, and then we'll pick up where I'll just finish off on some communication channels, tell you about communication channels if you have any problems. But for now, if you could please access the Google link and just let us have some feedback. Thank you. We'll pause the event. Okay, hopefully that's enough time to complete the survey. You can continue if you're finishing off. While I just say thank you to all of today's presenters. I've enjoyed each and everyone's presentations there, and I've actually learned a little bit myself. But before we end, I'd just like to talk you through the various communication channels you can use to contact HMRC when things don't quite go according to plan, or you know, if you just need some further information. Thanks, Paul, for changing the slides. Top left-hand corner, GVMS, it is a system. Occasionally, you know, it needs to go down for planned updates and maintenance. So when that happens, any planned downtime you will be able to find out about any downtime. We try to minimize downtime and make changes and general maintenance fixes, you know, in the quietest of hours, usually, you know, early hours of the morning. So if you want to find out about any instances of GVMS downtime, you can do that on gov.uk. So if you search gov.uk, that will be there. Right. If you are looking for general advice on GVMS, help moving goods at the border, if you've got problems registering or you're getting error messages and you can't work out what they mean, you know, when you're creating a GMR, we have something called a SIT helpline, and SIT stands for Customer and International Trade Helpline. As you see, there's a telephone number there. And this helpline will be open British, you know, UK time from 8 o'clock to 2200 hours Monday to Friday, or from 8 o'clock in the morning to 1600 hours weekends. So that's for general advice on GVMS or general, you know, problems with GVMS, error messages, etc. Okay, so please make a note of that number if you need to. We will be sending out this slide pack, by the way, so if you don't get an opportunity to make a note of the number, that's okay. Okay, so we also have something called the Trader Support Service, and there's a telephone number and a gov.uk URL there where you can access the Trader Support Service, and this is essentially for Northern Ireland protocol advice, guidance, training or support. Okay, and if you've got any GVMS queries where the Trader Support Service is acting as an intermediary, you can also you know, ring this number or seek advice on gov.uk. Okay, so that's the Trader Support Service, primarily for Northern Ireland protocol advice. We also have a online services help desk phone number there, and that's open from 8 till 4 p.m. Monday to Friday, or 1600 hours. Again, that's UK time. And this is for government gateway credential loss or reset. So if you need to, you know, reset your password, you've forgotten your password, etc., that line can help you sort that out. And we also have something called Desk Pro. Okay, and you can access that 24/7 via a link in gov.uk. It's also available, I think, within the GVMS system as a link called Get Help, and that's for issues with the gov.uk web pages or issues with the GVMS web user interface. So technical issues, if you want those kind of system-y technical issues, you would use those links, and that will access our Desk Pro service. There's also reference there in the corner to the driver messaging service, or the check if you need to report for an inspection service. As you know, we've talked about, there's a link in the GMR of your print, that GMR, the PDF version. The URL is there, and you can just enter that URL into the phone and use that service. So I'd just like to finish by highlighting these various channels and their uses. Hopefully, you know, all goes smoothly come January 22, but we know sometimes things go wrong, so please make a note and bear that in mind. Okay, so Paul, final slide, which is just to say thank you. That basically brings today's session to a close. We will follow up with a question and answers pack to all the questions raised today. Like I said before, today's webinar session will be converted into a YouTube video, and we will pass that out via the various trade bodies for onward cascades, and we'll also make today's slides available via the same means. I'd just like to say, finish by saying once again, a big thank you for attending today's session, and a big thanks to all the presenters, and for those that took the time to complete the survey and provide any feedback, and massive thank you. So until the next webinar and session, which, as Paul said earlier, is planned for sometime in November, probably late November. Thank you very much, and hope to speak to you all again shortly. Thank you.